You ready here? Very good. Welcome to the January 11th meeting of the Hastings Economic Development and Redevelopment Authority. It looks like we do have a quorum here this evening. Item A is the oath of office for Margaret Sullivan. Okay.
All right, Martha, would you please stand? Sure. Raise your right hand. And repeat after me, please. I, Martha Sullivan,
I, Martha Sullivan,
do solemnly affirm
solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of HEDRA Commissioner
the duties of HEDRA Commissioner
of the City of Hastings,
of the City of Hastings,
Counties of Dakota and Washington,
counties of Dakota and Washington,
and State of Minnesota,
and State of Minnesota,
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Do I hand over the hot potato now?
We haven't got that part yet.
All right. Yeah. All right, under item number 2, we have the minutes of the December 21st, 2017 meeting. Are there any additions, questions, comments? Very good. Is there a second? All right, everyone in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, looks like we're good there. Item number 3 is bills. John, do you have anything you need to point out this evening?
Yeah, taking a look at the bills here, we have one of our payments for the Vermillion Street Corridor Plan, and then one of the last nasty electricity bills for Hudson. So those are probably the most significant of the bills.
Very good. Are we all good with that?
I'll move acceptance of the bills.
All right, is there a second? Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. On to item number 4, business. And under that, we have item A, election and appointment of officers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we're looking to make our annual appointments of officers for HEDRA. We're looking to elect a president, vice president, and treasurer. Now, these positions would be elected from the citizen commissioners of the HEDRA body themselves. And then reappoint Morgan as secretary, Melanie Lammers, our finance manager, as assistant treasurer, and designate Dan Flegel, our city attorney, and Andrea McDowell-Paler as our legal counsel for HEDRA. So we're looking to take those actions tonight. Concerning the actions related to appointment of officers from the body here, we can accept motions for nominations for those positions. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Yes.
Question, who's the current VP?
The current VP is, Pam would be the current vice president, Scott is the treasurer.
Okay. Just having been on the commission for a long time, usually it's the current VP moves to president, treasurer moves to VP, and next year gets to be president. And then whoever's off, I guess it's me, steps into treasurer. But that's kind of what we've done in the past, since it's, unless you're all fighting over it.
Is there more pay?
Not at all.
No.
I just got paid. I just.
Yeah, I know, those big
What to do
paychecks.
with my check?
It's
you
a
know?
small check.
I might just, hand it over to a charity or something.
Very good. All right.
Is it good with everyone?
Nominating the slate to rotate as it did last year.
Sounds good to me.
Does that sound okay with everybody?
Second that.
Okay, so just,
So the motion would be that Pam would become the new president. Would become, I'm sorry. Scott would become the new vice president, and Martha would become our treasurer.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good. Are we all in agreement here?
Second that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries.
okay. And then just for clarification, the official appointment of the other positions as noted in the report here for assistant treasurer and legal counsel and secretary with those be part of that motion as well? Or should we do a separate,
Why don't we just do a second?
okay.
So amendment would be to authorize also the secretary position being Morgan, and appoint that Melanie Lammers as finance manager or assistant treasurer, and designate Dan Flegel, city attorney, and Andrea Poehler as our legal counsel.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the election carries.
So now, let's see, I guess it goes over to Scott now, because he would be would be the vice president, since the president is not here, so.
Very good.
Same pay.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, we are going to look at authorization of banking signatories.
Yeah, thank you. I've included the resolution in the packet itself. It's just similar to past years, just making formal the president, treasurer, assistant treasurer positions that we have just voted on. And so those positions, as we've just voted on, would be included in that resolution.
Is there a motion to,
Yeah.
move
I'll move to adopt resolution 2018-1, which is authorizing the banking signatories for the president, treasurer, assistant treasurer, and secretary as dealing with our banking relationships.
Second.
Let's see, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And now we're gonna look at a joint powers agreement with our open to business partner.
Yeah, thank you. Little summary on the program. This is a program that we've been involved in with Dakota County communities since 2013. It's a joint project that's headed by the Dakota County CDA, the Community Development Agency, and has the participation of about 10 other cities. Open to Business provides business consulting on a free one-on-one basis, and also provides funding for gap loan financing for entrepreneurs. So they help new and existing business people. Since 2013 in Hastings, they've assisted about 50 individuals that have utilized their services, and they've issued a handful of loans as well on that one. The proposed contract that we're looking at tonight would provide services through the end of 2020, and HEDRA's annual share of the contract would be $5,513. This would be an increase of about $342 from the last contract. So the changes in the contract itself would be, instead of being 1 year, it would be going out to 2020, and then the fees going up $300 or so. So what we're looking for is authorization to sign the contract, and I can stand for any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Jen, I asked this last year again. Thanks for the data that we had roughly 50 people. Is that since 2013, correct?
Correct.
And do we know, are they using the service or are they using it for the loaning part?
I think most of that's been for the consulting services portion. I think there's been 2 or 3 loans that have been issued.
And I noticed all the different partners in here on the county. Do we as staff meet with them? I just want to make sure it's a good bang for our buck long-term. And I see how they're extending it. Instead of annually, it's a few more years. I'm fine. I think it's a good asset that we have to offer people, but I think we should be making sure that all the partners are agreeing that this is a good program that we need to keep offering. Because I don't know if 50 is a good number or not, and how much are they getting out of it. We kind of did our own at one time, if I remember right, Ron. I think that's what we did. So I just want to make sure we're just not kind of rubber stamping something that's because everybody else is doing it, that we can say, oh, look what we got over here, and it's not being used. So
Sure.
that'd be my only concern.
Mr. Chair, just a little bit of background, not about this program, but when we were doing it as our own community, it took about $50,000 to $60,000 a year to provide a part-time person to do this type of work. Now, there was a lot more advertising, a lot more marketing, and over the 5-year period, I've met maybe 300 people. But that was because I was officed in the chamber 4 days a week, half the time. So I think for the bang for our buck, the $5,000, we, I think, as HEDRA staff of the city, need to market it more to existing businesses and new businesses. Existing businesses should use this too, because that's where you actually get the best return, is if you get a business that grows 10 employees, it's better than starting out with a brand-new concept.
Right.
Because over half of the concepts that came in, we talked through it, and they decided it wasn't a good idea. So I think, we need to work on our marketing probably from our positions
Okay.
to make it get a better bang.
Okay.
That's just an opinion, sorry.
So conceptually, what could that look like? I guess, I think we had a similar conversation last year around how do we get this out to Hastings as a service, so the Amy's of Hastings, who may or may not have ever heard of this program before she walked in here tonight, would be aware of this, understand what it is, and feel, invited and qualified. This one, for some reason, just seems to fall through the cracks of the multitude of services you can get from the city of Hastings. So how would we, this is a rhetorical question, obviously, we're not gonna make a plan tonight, but in the interest of brainstorming, what could that be? And of course, we're all gonna look at Morgan, because it's easy, right?
Chair, I think that is the answer, because Morgan's only been here about a year. I think that is our marketing piece, is actually having Morgan and the chamber let people know, hey, you gotta know about this program. Before that, we were swamped. We didn't have anybody to get the word out about this program where it was available, but I would like to see him come to Hastings a little more if it could, but again, that's something staff can negotiate with the county.
So that could be something as simple as having the flyer when they do the monthly drop-ins, that we see in the paper or something, to make sure that they're getting some.
And Morgan works with the chamber often, oh, sorry.
Well, I'm just
If we're
stream of
brainstorming,
consciousness, yeah.
when Morgan meets with the chamber and they have a chamber event, we make sure that the person from Open to Business comes to that event and talks to existing businesses, because they're members of the chamber. And chamber people will talk to each other, and if they see a person at an event like that, or banking events, or that's where we'll get the word of mouth coming from the chamber. And if staff can work with Open to Business to make sure that they get to, one of their goals should be to get to 3 chamber events during the year. It's a good way of marketing.
I'm on the board there as well. Our next meeting is Tuesday, just prior to our big event coming up, the big dinner. So it might be good if I could get something in my hands to bring along to that meeting. If Maureen, you want to send me something, I'd be happy to kind of be a liaison for that message, to include somewhere on the website or wherever it is.
Brainstorming works.
Good job.
Brainstorming works. Another question, John, on the financing. This financing is completely independent of any of HEDRA's programs. Is that correct? So participation in this does not disqualify you for any of our programs. You can build on ours with gap financing. It's a big service. I mean, I don't know how easy it is,
Yeah.
the vetting and the application process and things like that, but assuming it has some approachability, that's a pretty significant service.
It is, yes, and the funding mechanisms, the gap loans that they offer could be built upon from anything we'd offer. Getting one would not exclude you from getting another.
And just as part of history, their goal is to have you have a good, strong business plan, and then actually go with you to some banks to get the financing before you would come to HEDRA, or before you'd be them. They'd be the loan person of third, because they would prefer that you have such a strong business project that you'll get financing from the open market.
So they might act as facilitators as a first role.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what their goal is supposed to be.
Okay. Assuming we're done with discussion, is there a motion to accept this authorization to continue in this agreement.
I'll make that motion.
And I would second it.
All those in favor of moving forward with that authorization, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we're gonna move on to Resolution D, the authorization of an economic development loan for Beloved Boutique.
Thank you. Beloved Boutique has submitted a request for a $25,000 working capital loan from our Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. These funds will assist with build-out signage and beginning inventory for the startup retail boutique located at 113 2nd Street East. The total project costs, which include build-out signage, fixtures, beginning inventory, as well as website design and e-commerce setup, point of sale and inventory systems, is estimated at $60,000. Beloved Boutique is also working with Open to Business right now and is seeking a $25,000 working capital loan from that program. And the remaining estimated project cost would be financed through equity investments from VZ Group. So we are looking at a 3-year loan for working capital with an interest rate of 4.5 or 0.25 above the prime rate, which there's a correction in here, so it should be 4.5% is the current prime rate. And the utilization of these funds for fixtures, signage, and inventory will allow Beloved Boutique to be open and ready for business in spring of 2018. So I can stand for any questions, and Amy is here as well for any questions.
Mr. Chair, what is Beloved Boutique? What is it? What are you going to sell, do?
It's women's apparel.
Oh, okay. Good. And how large a space of the former Meyer company are you going to take?
The Meyer company, we're taking half of it, which is about 1,580
Oh.
square feet.
Perfect. Good size.
Other questions, comments, discussion? If none, motion? Motion from Martha,
I'll make the second.
second from Ron. All those in favor of said motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And moving on, similar discussion, Resolution E, revisiting this, the same loan for Second Street Depot.
Thank you. So Second Street Depot submitted a request for a $50,000 loan from the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. Their project was delayed while working with Open to Business, who in the end could not provide the financing that they originally thought that they could. So currently, Second Street Depot is working towards SBA loan approval. Their financing at Merchants Bank has been approved, but the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund guidelines require that after approval, the loan is dispersed within 6 months. And the original resolution was passed June 1st, 2017. So this attached resolution just reflects updated dates. And in addition to the updated dates, the interest rate will be updated to reflect the current prime rate, which is 4.5%. So the resolution that we're asking for is just an updated one so they can continue to move forward with their approval process.
Any questions?
It's more of a comment because I think this is, you can see it was delayed when they're working with Open to Business. I don't know if it was Open to Business's fault or the contractors or we don't have what the reasoning was. It looks like, but it's now gonna cost them probably a little bit more money on interest because of that. So that's, I just don't know enough about Open to Business. I wanna make sure that we as a city are partners and we push them a little bit to say, hey, this shouldn't have to happen to somebody. We should be pushing them to say, make sure that our clients are getting taken care of, our residents. So that's my only comment on that one is I feel bad for these folks that, if that was it, again, we don't know what the consequences were of this, but with that, I make a motion to approve this one. I think it's the authorization for Second Street Depot.
All right, all those in favor of that authorization, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. No problem. And moving on, reports and information.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got good news on the Hudson front. We have approved the authorization to transfer, as HEDRA did in December. The council did that on January 2nd, and we're moving along towards closing at the end of the month. We've just submitted some documentation that we needed to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the final environmental sign-offs that would be necessary for the purchase and development agreement. They've been working very diligently towards getting those letters back to us, and then we're working with the attorneys on closing at this point. So everything looks in line, which is great. It's been a very long journey on this one, and we're looking forward to a great project coming up on it. Unfortunately, a couple of the grants that we had applied for late last year for environmental remediation, one through Minnesota DEED and one through Metropolitan Council, were not funded. We've found that out late in 2017. And so we are, the project itself with the environmental obligations, if we cannot find additional grant funding, is going to draw down our cash balance to a level that we would rather keep higher, would be about $150,000. We are going to be putting another grant request to Dakota County CDA for $250,000 coming up here this month. I don't know what the likelihood of financing of that is. They've been very generous in funding our activities in the past, and conversations I've had with them. They may be at the point where they've feel that sufficient funding has been contributed from that agency towards this project. But I think we'll still be moving forward towards the submittal of that grant, and I guess we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. And then we'll also continue to seek what other grants we might be able to find out there. So that's what I have related to the Hudson project.
Dan, would we assume we're going to transfer on the 22nd? There's a pretty good chance we're going to see one more utility bill then?
I would think so, yes.
So this isn't our last one that we're approving, we probably got one more?
Probably got one more, yes.
Okay, so it's not a prorated type thing, we're just gonna,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
John, I know we talked at our last meeting about some of those, the grant status.
Mhm.
Is any of that, that's not new since our last meeting? That's the same, I haven't kept track of them,
Sure.
I apologize. So I didn't know if that's indication of new news, or if that's just repetition from our last meeting.
Yeah, I think half of it's new. We, at the last meeting, I believe, one of the grants, the Metropolitan Council grant, I believe, we had learned that we were not recommended for funding. And then between the HEDRA meeting and the council meeting, we learned that the other grant was also recommended for not being funded.
Okay. So we have none in process right now? That's the extent of our applications and potential?
We'll be putting one in next week. We'll be putting one into Dakota County. That one is due, I think, January 19th, and the decisions we made the February, March timeframe on that one. So I've talked to their staff just to get an idea of what their feelings would be on the submittal of the grant. And frankly, I think it might be tough, but we're going to put it in and we'll give it our best shot.
John, I'm kind of having a hard time understanding this. So it reduced our cash balance by about $150,000?
To $150,000.
So what would be our total exposure? What are we going to have to pay for that the grants aren't there to do? How much?
Right now, I think it's about $600,000.
Get the grant writers going.
So follow on to that, $150,000, what's our timeline for any recovery? I know that there's a ton of money, a ton being a relative term, but there's a significant amount of money tied up in that transaction.
Mhm.
So does that closing then trigger an immediate refunding of HEDRA, or what is the timeline? As we sit and talk about $25,000 loans and $50,000 loans, I just want to make sure I understand, does this bring HEDRA to a stop temporarily in terms of our ability to entertain economic development
Sure.
loan funds and things like that? What is the consequence of all this at this point?
Sure. The $150,000 is the immediate cash balance that we have on hand. We also have other assets out there with cash that will be coming in periodically from that. So we've got other cash that will be coming in there. We will have to be watching the loans that we do give out. The recovery that we're gonna be having from this building is we're gonna start recovering it once the construction is significantly completed, and we can receive some tax increment financing payback on that one. And looking at the building construction timeframe, it might not be till 2020 that we'll be seeing significant numbers come back from that. With the construction this year, starting, the building permits need to be in by August 1st. And so we'll be seeing some construction this year, but I'm not sure how significant it would be for tax valuation for the TIF bonds for next year.
Okay, so is it fair to say that, I'm assuming we're not gonna extend down to a zero?
Mhm.
Is this essentially gonna bring this commission to it's not a stop, but,
Mhm.
you know, a temporary halt on bringing any new applications in, or what does that mean for the commission?
Sure. I think what's gonna be for the commission here is our ability to do large projects is gonna be hampered over the next couple of years. Our ability to operate, we'll have to watch it more than we have, but we'll still be able to operate. I believe we'll still be able to grant loans. It's more that if a large project were to come along that would require significant capital for us, the capital reserves we once had, we do not have now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable. I guess not that we can do anything about it, but I'm uncomfortable because it makes us, for lack of a better word, vulnerable in terms of what we can do. Our hands are tied financially if another developer comes in and says, we want to do something, we need some help here. We might have to turn them away. This whole Hudson project has really tied up a lot of money over the last few years. I think we're all pretty aware of that. Water, that was already to say water over the bridge. In California, I suppose it's over the bridge. Water under the bridge, but I don't know that it was a good idea to get so involved financially and leave ourselves vulnerable. By the time this is all of the dust settles, but the game goes on, so we'll just have to live with it. In the future, I would be really reluctant to put us into a position that we've been in, because we've, the mortgage payments, everything have really chewed into our funding capabilities that perhaps we could have used for other projects that could have been just as big or bigger. The whole process has just made me uncomfortable all along. I know we're going to get pie in the sky. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to get a great piece of property when it's all done. And we can all be very proud of it. But there has been, for the record, there has been a lot of money that's been tied up making the whole thing get to the point where it is. That being said, a question on TIF. So do the property taxes increase when the permits are taken out and granted, or nothing happens in terms of TIF until everything is all done.
To answer that question, there needs to be valuation added to the building itself through the renovation of that, and that's determined from the Dakota County assessor. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be complete, but there needs to be substantial work done to start seeing some of that payback on our TIF bonds. So as we look forward, there's usually going to be an evaluation about this time every year. We look forward 1 year right now with if they were to go as late as August 1st for their building permit submittal, and through discussions with them, they're hopeful that they can do that sooner, but assume that they take to that August 1st date, get plan review done by September, start some work this fall. There may be something captured in there that Dakota County would see from evaluation and be put on for the taxes and help us with our TIF bond, but probably not significant. We will get that chunk the following year. We've got within the development agreement the completion date by December of 19. So when we are factoring this in 2020, it'll be complete.
In the hundreds of pages of documents that we looked at and also the council looked at, the statement in there that there is an agreement that a substantial amount of work will be done by, I believe was it December of this coming year?
Yeah, there was a clause within the amendment that Confluence would work towards completing substantial work by the end of 2018, but that the project itself would need to be complete by the end of 19.
Yeah, I kind of wish, in hindsight, that we had said 50% or 60% rather than a substantial amount, because that's a relative term. I don't know at what point the assessor comes in and, says this is substantial, this is enough to start, with the TIF money trickling in. Who is responsible from the city to say this is a substantial amount of work? Is anybody, or it's something that has bothered me since I saw that in the amendment.
Yeah, and within the agreement, the work to be completed by the end of 2018, that's more aspirational. That's something that the developer will make his best efforts to complete as much as he can. The 2019 date, there's some specific language within the definitions of what constitutes that significant improvements, and that's essentially we're done with the project.
Yeah, and kind of like a contract to build a bridge, like we did there over Seaman Drive a few years ago, and you're going to have it done by this date, and if you don't, got some penalties that kick in. We don't have any penalties as part of this agreement, that if for some reason they pull out because they have another project that's more important to them, we can't stop them from doing that. We're pretty much at their beck and call as to whatever excuses they might give us for not being completed by a certain date. Is that correct then?
Well, I mean, within the executed contract, they've stated they will do this. As far as what the ramifications would be if they do not on that one, I mean, they'll be the owner of the property. They have carrying costs that they will be having once they become the proud owners here in a few short weeks. That there will be impetuses that have not been on them right now that will be on them to get this thing done, because now they've been spending money. They've had a substantial amount of soft costs, probably in excess of $1 million over the last couple of years. But now they'll have some hard costs that they're gonna be paying with, the maintenance of this facility, as we all know.
And, I mean, you know what you're saying, that's the carrot on the stick. They want to start making a profit, and they can't make a profit if the hotel isn't done, if the
Right.
apartments aren't ready, if they're not ready to start, renting out the banquet hall and so forth. So it's a self-motivation.
It is. Their
that-
debt payments are gonna start in, and that's gonna be probably the biggest motivator they have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make all of that clear, for the record, that we're relying on them, and we really don't have anything as a city, as an agency here ourselves to push them in the right direction. It's just, that their good, sound business acumen will say to them, let's get this done. I do have a question about the property for the parking ramp. We're building a public parking ramp on private property. Has anybody looked into what that does to the private property property tax? Does that make that property more valuable because there is a public parking ramp sitting on it, or what?
Yeah, it's a good question. When we spoke about the transfer early on, that was a similar question that we had, and I think Confluence had, as to what the taxable value of this would be. Right now, it's a private property. If it's being used for a public parking ramp, would they have a reduced taxable liability based upon it being more of a public type facility? And from the information that they were able to obtain from the assessor, that's what they found out, is that yes, it would be taxed at a reduced rate there because of its use.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Chair? I get everybody's concerned on this about the state of where we're gonna be at. I mean, I still look at how many millions of dollars we got in grant funding already for this place alone. I mean, it's amazing what, I could see where CDA would say, how much more are you gonna ask for? But I don't think we're handcuffed, we just lost a tool in our toolbox. It's a pretty big tool. I mean, we got other things that we can do as a body, I think, to do that, but it makes it, what I like is there's other funding options. Open to Business can do the same thing that we're doing for some gap funding if a business in Hastings wants to do that. I think we need to make sure we emphasize that as much as we can, but I think it also we have to make sure we're getting our repayments on the loans that we have out there. That's gonna come back into our funding mechanism too. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm not screeching halt, why are we here type thing, because I think this was a big risk on our city, but I think it was a good, important risk that we took on this Hudson place, and we knew it would be a challenge. I don't think we knew how much environmental challenge was gonna be once we got in there and dug around, but I'm excited. I think I'd rather not pay the utility bill in January, but I get it. We'll have to pay what it takes to heat it, but thank you.
Well, and I think it's great that we got the grants, but again, they are tax dollars. They didn't come directly out of Hastings coffers, but they are tax dollars. And, so I look at that, getting back to what I said here a few minutes ago, it is a tremendous public investment to get this going. And, one way or the other, we all did appropriate funds out of our own pockets for this. Not directly city funds again, but taxpayer funds. Even though they came from the Met Council, which seems like it's 1,000 miles away, it's still taxpayer money.
All right, great discussion. I think we're done with Hudson.
Okay.
What else you got for us, John?
Oh, go ahead.
Or
I think
Morgan?
I'm up next. Just a quick reminder, the next Vermillion Street Corridor Study Coalition and community meeting will take place on Saturday, February 10th. We are still in the process of confirming time and location, but most likely the meetings will be held mid-morning, early afternoon that day. So additional information will follow as we have it. And then business retention and expansion. I just wanted to point out that our business retention and expansion program was recently featured in the City of Hastings newsletter. The article focused on what business retention is, why we do it, and how businesses in the community can participate. So kind of going off our discussion earlier about open to business, this is a tool that I use to better explain the programs that we do have, including the resources like open to business or like Minnesota Deed assistance programs to the businesses in our community already, to let them know not only what the city has to offer, but also the other resources that we have available to them as well.
If I could add one more thing to that too, I mean, the chamber, we help with the chamber. They have what they would term their ambassador visits, which the chamber goes out with different groups once a month and visits with people. So we help and we participate in that. What Morgan is doing here with business retention expansions is also in addition to that. So we participate in the chamber visits, which is great, but also Morgan will meet one-on-one with business people on the business retention expansion program.
So these visits go into a deeper dive into exactly kind of what's going on with those businesses. Are they profitable? What challenges are they facing? What opportunities do they see? Are they looking to grow? And if they are looking to grow or expand or are facing challenges, what can we do as a city to assist in that? So it gives us a lot of really good information, and we compile that with the use of Greater MSP assists us in compiling it all together to kind of see if there's trends and if there's something that we're really lacking here or something that really stands out that makes Hastings a good opportunity for business. So.
And I can move on here. Not much happening on the commercial vacancy front here. The numbers are the same on that one. We've had a lot of movement in downtown, as you all know, as far as different businesses and renovations taking place with the application we had for Beloved Boutique and the changes going on in the Meyer building. And you've got Spiral Brewery, which is moving along, and they're getting ready to open up here shortly. And then Eye Candy Refine moving across the street to the Emporium. They're looking to use their existing location for another type of retail store as well. And then we've got the Sui Generis going into the property just to the west of Spiral Brewery and the Meyer building. So you've got that whole block just changing down there over the next few months. So spring will be interesting down there. And I think that's all I had for updates.
John, any update along Vermillion Street? We had that project that was right off of 55 between there and the Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
Potential small business
Mhm.
building going up. Any plans coming through for that yet?
Yeah, nothing official yet, but one big roadblock has disappeared. With the project itself there, the city had property that we sold to a developer for a small retail site. And they were been working with Walgreens for a long period of time to get access to Highway 55 with the light. And within the last 6 weeks, they've done that. And so now they'll be able to come forward with plans, I presume, in the spring and get going on that one. Mm-hmm.
Maybe just to add, and it was page 1 of the Hastings paper, and the city planning committee met with a developer who is looking to develop the land just to the north of Art Space as a cidery, and also purchase some land in the business park to put up an orchard, an apple orchard with heirloom apples. Heirloom kind of defined as European apples as opposed to what the University of Minnesota has come up with,
Yeah.
Honeycrisp and all the rest of them on that. And so there may be some movement there on that property. That property is owned by the city. And it's part of the dollar for for sale, or it's not?
Yeah, actually, that property, the downtown property is owned by HEDRA as part of the redevelopment project down there, then the industrial property. So those actions will come before this body here in the future. There's some further information we're looking for from Panache, the cider operator, and the next steps would be to consider the sale of the property in the industrial park through the land credit program, and then also take a look at the concept for the downtown as well. So that'll be something that, if things keep moving the way they are, we should be seeing something this year.
Yeah, it's still in its infancy, but they're looking at it as kind of a destination-type business where you're going to be drawing regionally. You know, it's not your typical bar and grill type thing. It's going to attract people from the area, the region, and I'm all excited about that as well. So I hope we can do something with that as time moves along. There was a comment by one of the committee members that it might be better to lease the property rather than sell it, so that if it did fold for some reason, then we still own the property, and you know, can have some control over again what what might go in there on that. But yeah, stay tuned. It's really cool that we got something like that, you know, to be of interest, to be interested in, excuse me, in the city of Hastings. I just wanted to mention too, before we might adjourn, that the Chamber of Commerce annual banquet and meeting is the 25th, Thursday the 25th. It is down at Treasure Island Casino. It's a really nice affair. I'm not sure if everybody has been to it. I think Ron has been there over the years and so forth, but it was very well attended last year, which was great to see. It kind of dwindled down with the recession, started to come back up again, but a real good infusion of businesses participating again in it. So if you can make it, it's fun, and you can certainly bring a guest to it as well. It is $75 a ticket for dinner, but it is well worth it to kind of rub shoulders with the business community.
Chair? One last question for staff. Ever heard any more? I was intrigued by the incubator concept out at the Hudson, not Hudson, the other Hudson. Have they came back to the city at all, or?
Yeah, have you heard anything new on that?
The last contact I had with them, they did say that they had some interest from both large and small users, and they had replaced half of the roof. So they have done some improvements in the property and are still looking to get more interest. The front part, where the office part is, they are looking at maybe like a co-working space in that area. So we're working to, when they're ready, to connect them with Coco and some other co-working facilities throughout the region.
So Hudson sold it to this individual?
Correct.
So the individual, okay, so
Yeah.
Hudson doesn't own it anymore?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think we got into some E there, or maybe we're through E already. Yeah, we got through that, I guess, so.
Mm-hmm.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.